Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to set up this American Special Stratocaster HSS. It's, I think, from 2018, and it's kind of new old stock. I did notice some of the screws are tarnished on it, but it's never been touched. It's directly how it comes from the factory, and we're going to see just how good we can make it. It's got a couple of features I really like. I love the humbucker and the two singles, and it also has jumbo frets. So I'm looking forward to that. So before we get started, thank you. Let's get right into this thing and see how good we can make this thing play. Okay, the first thing we do, we get the neck as straight as we can, and it looks pretty straight. And take a look at the end. You see some nice relief at the end. So when you're doing those wicked bends with these jumbo frets, it shouldn't fret out at all. I like that. I like to see some relief at the end. So the next step is to do the nasty. Okay, all taped off now with the neck straight, and I just got it held on with this tape with my flat straight edge. Now obviously we can't get the feeler gauge through there or there, but ooh, look at, it's going right through there. What does that tell us? We've got some high frets in there too. Shouldn't be doing that. So these frets aren't exactly installed all the way. See, the frets have all been dressed, but the ones that didn't go down, that weren't pushed into the slot completely, they're still posing a problem. So how I do it is, I'm going to tackle all the high frets before I even dress the frets. So I'm going to use the fret rocker, and how I mark the high frets is, I won't mark them. I might mark them on the frets to begin with, but I'll put dots on the sides of the frets on the masking tape. Because then as I go over and over them, it'll wipe off the marker on the actual fret. So that's why I do it on here. So it's more permanent. And the sides of these frets are nasty. They really are. When they crown them, that looks kind of shoddy. You know, when you run your hands up the sides, there's no sharp edges at all, which is nice. You can see that they work those. But the edges of the frets, like there, it looks pretty. I took a couple pictures. Here's a close-up of it. Okay, here's like one of the most important steps to this whole thing. I have my fret rocker, and what I'm going to do is look for tall frets. We know there's tall frets. We know that. Can you hear that? That's a pretty stinking tall fret. This fret is high. That's why this thing stuck in a couple spots. So how I mark them, you can mark them right on the fret, but when you go to sand off that fret to make it level with the rest, it takes off this marker. So basically I'll just put dots next to it. But the way I do it is, well, here, I'll just do it, and we'll talk as we go. See, it just starts there. Where does it exactly start? It starts right about there. Wow. It abruptly ends. Wow. Right about here. So then I just mark them all the way across. And what I do is I'm going to go up the entire neck. And then once that's all done, we're going to take care of all these high frets. So if you're wondering just how much space is that when you're rocking? Well, on this guitar, I think the biggest is 2/1000 of an inch. I think most of them are like 1/1000 of an inch. And you're thinking 1/1000 of an inch, how can that really affect it? Look at it, it disappears when you turn it sideways almost. It does affect it. It does. And this guitar shouldn't be so full of tall frets. It shouldn't be. I mean, they should all be. This is that drives me crazy about these factories, is that the most important part of the guitar isn't the finish. It isn't all this other stuff. It's seating the frets correctly and dressing them nicely. These ones aren't. They're obviously not all seated. And when you look at the sides of them, they're nasty looking. Now that took 18 minutes. You can see all the frets that are not seated. I mean, this is an American guitar. I think it was $1,500 when it came out in 2018, and it's new old stock. I mean, that's pretty bad. That is pretty bad. So now I'm going to deal with all these. Then I'll dress them all together. But I always want to take off the least amount of fret material as possible. That's what I'm going for here. But I want it to play like butter too. I want it to play super awesome, which I'm sure it will once I'm done. But this is unacceptable. I mean, where's your quality control? Come on. That's crazy, Fender, especially for an American guitar. People will probably think, oh, it's just those Mexican ones or China ones. No, it's not. So we've got 18 minutes. I wrote it down, and that was just figuring out these slightly tall frets. And I'm going to see how long it takes to level them, because I like to level them. I use 400 because we're only talking about 1/1000 of an inch. And I like to do that. Then when that's over, I'll dress them all. And like I said earlier, my goal is to preserve as much fret height as possible. So here we go. So this took 40 minutes. So now what I'm going to do is now I'll just lightly dress all the frets. I'll put my black marker over all of them. And I'm just going to really lightly kiss the tops of these frets, work the sides a little bit. And then I can polish them, and then I can get to the rest of the setup. But this, I mean, it takes a long time, but that's what makes it play really good. And I mean, the customer says the guitar just buzzed all over, and the action wasn't exactly low. It wasn't even low when it was buzzing. So you hear me complain a lot about guitar manufacturers and they do shoddy work. Well, they do. And that's the problem. You pay all this money, then you got to pay somebody like me to make it the way it should be? That's just not right. And the actual difference of the fret height with the tall frets was 0.03 of an inch. That was the highest one I found. But most of them were 2 or maybe a little less than 2. I know that seems so insignificant, but it makes a lot of difference of the playability. So let's get these things dressed. And you can see how I like to cover up a new guitar, or all guitars actually. And that's what I save these guys for. I don't want to scratch up somebody's guitar. I mean, look how long it took me just to mask the fretboard off. Okay, let's get rolling. Okay, now we're going to finish off with 3,000. That's right. I went right up to 3,000. And, you know, I don't even need to polish the frets after this, but of course I'm going to. And so I'm doing the edges, I'm doing the top. I mean, the sides of these frets were pretty gnarly. They got to be a little better now after this. The crowning file just seemed to really make a mess on these frets. Yeah, I just don't understand why. I don't know. Like, to me, I would be, if I picked some of these guitars off the line and I was the boss at Fender or Gibson or anywhere, I'd be embarrassed. And I'd end up eventually getting fired because I would demand people spend more time putting in the frets perfectly. I mean, for God's sakes, a while back, well, I only worked on one Harley Benton, and I didn't do all this. I just did the basic setup. And at the 12th fret, it was 30 thousandths of an inch on both sides. 30 thousandths. And I didn't touch the frets. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, if a company like this can put in frets this good, then these big companies who are always bragging about their stuff, they should be doing it too. I lifted it up a bit to 40, I think 43 and 33. Because it was just so low. It wasn't buzzing or anything, but you do want a little bit of a safety margin. You can have super low action at home, but if you're ever in a band or something, sometimes necks will do weird things and all of a sudden your guitar won't play. I've seen that happen. I remember taking a Fender Stratocaster. I took it to Mexico. It was a Mexican Strat. I took it home and went to lunch, and we came back. The guitar wouldn't play. I had to adjust the truss rod. Just that fast. That's kind of rare, though. It doesn't, usually happen like that. Whew, man, my arm. Surprised it doesn't look like Arnold with all this. So yeah. So now I'm gonna clean this off, and then I'm gonna polish these. And it almost takes nothing because they're polished already, really. So it's gonna play like butter. Okay, you mother loves. I went up all the way to 3,000, so polishing these frets is a breeze. All right, now I have all the polish off the frets. I've really gone out of my way, as you could tell, to clean them. And now I'm going to pull the tape off, and you'll see why I have that first piece of tape across here. Unfortunately, you can still see the sides of the frets. I don't know what on earth they did to make them look so nasty. Frets are now perfect, no high frets, all leveled, sanded up to 3,000 and polished. So now it's time to get the strings on. But first I'll check over everything to make sure everything's tight. And there's some stuff on here. Look at the screws. Some of the screws are kind of tarnished. You can see that strap button kind of tarnished. I don't know why that would be the case, although the guitar is 4 or 5 years old and it was never sold up to this point. So I don't know what the deal is on that. So I'll make sure everything's tight, and I like to match these so they all feel the same. They're pretty good. Just the B is a little light. I don't like it when some are tight and some are loose and they all feel differently. And I'll make sure all these are, oh yeah, that one's, look at, it's totally loose. I'm loosening it. Wow. That one's loose. Fender quality, that one's loose. I'm undoing it with my finger. That one's loose. Look at that. Wow. Every single one is loose. Okay, well, let's tighten them up. Not too tight, you're going to strip them, but snug enough they're not going to come loose or be loose. There. If anybody's interested, I used a 9mm. Oh no, a 10. Fit on there perfect. Check the saddles out. As in how crooked they came from the factory. Look at this one and that one. Pretty crooked. So I took the 2 screws out of the jack plate, 2 screws out of the pick guard, and the strap button. Here's the 2 screws from the pick guard, and the strap button looks terrible compared to that strap button. And then here's the jack plate screws. That's pretty tarnished, so I'm gonna take out my mother lover, my mother's for all you lovers. I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm gonna try polishing these, trying to make them look a little better. I mean, they look terrible. Okay, here's the 2 screws that came from the jack plate. Look at the difference. It's amazing. Maybe I'll do a little close-up. So basically all I did was drop one of the screws down into the chuck of my drill. Don't tighten it too much, just so it holds it. Take a rag, put the rag in some of this, and it's pretty simple. It's pretty good. I'm going to do it a little bit more. I wonder what happened. There, nice and shiny. Okay, that can go back in the jack plate, those 2. And then I'll do the other 2 the same way. Get her back together. So I snug it up. Maybe that will hold it. It's got to hold a little bit. There we go. Oh yeah, nice. And we'll do a little on the sides here. Here, let's go like this. Is it turning? No, I don't think it was turning there for a minute. All right, I think that's good. And if you do that, just don't go tight. You don't want to hurt the threads. But it makes a real quick job out of it. Oh yeah. How's that look? Looks just like the other one now. I feel much better about that. All right, we'll put that back together. We'll put all these screws in, and then we'll start getting the strings on. Okay, now we have to adjust the springs in the back because we want the bridge to rest on the body. So I got to tighten these strings up a little bit. That's why I loosened the strings. So I tighten these two screws right here. So here's what we're looking for. We want it to come back down to touch the body. If a string ever broke, which it should never do, you'd still be in tune. And before it was like, what on earth was that? It was floating, like about like that. You can see that. And in order to get it to lay back, the strings are pulling this way, and the springs in the back are pulling that way, so it's pivoting. So I had to tighten those two screws to get more pressure on the springs. It's pretty simple. So that's taken care of. Now I can start thinking about what action. It's going to have to be higher than that. And I'll adjust the action. I'll make sure the saddles are straight. And once I adjust the truss rod, the height of the saddles, the action, once that's all done, then I can think about cutting the nut. Usually do that. And then after the nut is cut, then I'll do the intonation. So let's do it. The pickups were so low. I mean, the thing, not even remotely set up. It's so, and look at the pickup doesn't seem to match the string spacing. Look at that. That's like right over top of it. And when you bend, it's gonna just, it doesn't make any sense. It's gonna get like straight up over that saddle. Look at it. It's like, what? Who's running this show? I don't get that. Pretty good with the E. A little bit off. I don't know. There's something. Why would it be so far off? As soon as you bend, you're out of that field. Right? I don't know. I don't get that. But anyway, yeah, not really set up at all. Man. All right, one of the last things is I'm going to set the intonation, and it's kind of hard to make a recording of that. So a lot of times I just explain it for anybody who just came to the channel. Basically, here's how you set the intonation. You tune the open string. Okay, you get it in tune. Then you play it at the 12th fret. Let's see if I can do it with one hand. See, it's a little bit sharp. So what you do, because it's going sharp, the saddle goes that way. That's what makes it really easy to know. So then you just It's a little sharp, so the saddle's got to go that way. And of course, you want to do it in the playing position. So that's why it's kind of hard to film it. So I'm going to get that done now. Well, she's all back together, and despite the over 15 high frets and all the drama, it plays really good now. The action is good, it plays good, it sounds good. And I think the owner is going to be very, very happy with it because the way it left the factory. But I mean, it's great now, though. It's great. I don't know. What price point do you get like a really good setup with your guitar? That's what I'd like to know, because $1,500, it's not it. I think this was $1,500 in 2018, like a new old stock guitar. But it's really cool. It plays really good now. Real nice. It's got 9.5 to 44. Yeah, some people don't even know there's half gauge strings. Like my Strat has 8.5 to, I can't remember what the big E string is, but I really like those strings. But anyway, that is it. It's done, it's looking good, and it's ready to rumble. So anyway, I hope you learned something or you enjoyed hanging out with me during this process. You could leave a thumbs up and a subscribe. That would not hurt my feelings, and it wouldn't cost you a cent. So do it. Anyway, take care, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.